Croatoan. This one word, carved deep into a wooden palisade, is the only clue to one of the oldest, most haunting mysteries in human history. In 1590, a man returned to an island off the coast of North America to find his colony gone. Not attacked, not burned, vanished. 117 people, including his own daughter and his granddaughter, the first English child born in the New World, had disappeared as if they were smoke, leaving only that single cryptic word.
This is not just a ghost story. This is a true story of ambition, desperation, and the enduring mystery of what happened to the Lost Colony of Roanoke. To understand how a colony could simply vanish, you have to understand the world it came from. This was the late 16th century, an age of empires. England's Queen Elizabeth I was locked in a bitter Cold War with the superpower of the day, Spain. Spain was rich, pulling shiploads of gold from the New World. England wanted in. The Queen's favorite courtier, the dashing and ambitious Sir Walter Raleigh, was granted a charter to establish a colony in the territory they called Virginia, in honor of the Virgin Queen.
Their first attempt in 1585 was a disaster. It wasn't a colony, it was a military outpost led by a man named Ralph Lane. They were soldiers, not farmers. They quickly alienated the local Native American tribes, the Croatoan, by kidnapping them, demanding food, and ultimately murdering their chief, Wingina. When the famous sea captain Sir Francis Drake sailed by, the starving and beleaguered soldiers abandoned the fort and hitched a ride home.
But Sir Walter Raleigh was not done. In 1587, he funded a second, more ambitious voyage. This time, it would be different. He wasn't sending soldiers, he was sending families. 117 men, women, and children, led by an artist and cartographer named John White. Their mission was to create a real, permanent English settlement.
But their voyage began with a betrayal. Their destination was not Roanoke. It was supposed to be the Chesapeake Bay, 100 miles to the north, a more fertile, sheltered, and friendly location. But the ship's pilot, Simon Fernandez, refused to take them further. Whether from greed, impatience, or perhaps even secret orders from the Spanish, he forced the colonists ashore at the one place they didn't want to be, the abandoned, hostile, and sand-blasted island of Roanoke. July 1587. The colonists land. The mood is dark. They find their old 1585 fort overgrown and in ruins. Scattered on the ground are the sun-bleached bones of a single man, one of a tiny garrison left behind by the first group, killed by the locals. It is a terrible omen.
They try to rebuild, but the local tribes are, understandably, deeply suspicious. The English had already proven themselves to be violent and untrustworthy. John White attempts to re-establish diplomacy. He makes contact with the Croatoan tribe, who live on a nearby island. Their chief, Monteo, had actually traveled to England and back, and remained a steadfast ally of the English. But other tribes are not so forgiving. Just days after their arrival, one of White's assistants, George Howe, is shot with 16 arrows and bludgeoned to death while crabbing alone. The dream of a new life is already turning into a nightmare. The colonists are terrified. They are trapped on an island with hostile neighbors and dwindling supplies. August 18th, 1587. A single moment of hope. John White's daughter, Eleanor Dare, gives birth to a baby girl. They name her Virginia, the first English child born in the New World. She is a symbol of a new beginning, a tiny, fragile promise of a future. Late August, 1587. That future is already in doubt. The colony's supplies intended for the Chesapeake are not enough. The season is ending. They are not prepared for winter. The colonists hold a desperate meeting and come to one conclusion. Someone must return to England for help, and it must be the governor. It must be John White. White is horrified. He argues.
He does not want to abandon his post. He does not want to abandon his family, his daughter Eleanor and his new granddaughter Virginia. He fears he will be seen as a coward. But the colonists are united. They formally, in writing, beg him to go. Reluctantly, he agrees. They establish a code. If the colonists must move from Roanoke, they are to carve their destination into a tree. If they are in distress, if they are forced to leave under attack, they are to carve a Maltese cross above the name. John White sails for England. He promises, he swears, he will return by the following spring. He could not have known what was waiting for him. When White arrives in England, he finds a nation in panic. King Philip II of Spain has finally had enough. He has launched his invincible armada to invade England, crush the Queen, and end the English threat forever. In response, Queen Elizabeth issues a royal decree. All seaworthy ships are impounded for the war effort. No one is allowed to leave. John White is trapped. The spring of 1588 comes and goes. The armada is defeated, but the war rages on. 1589 passes. White is frantic. He petitions the Queen. He begs merchants. He tries to hire privateers. But he is a man of modest means, and his colony is a forgotten footnote in a global war. Finally, in 1590, he manages to buy passage on a fleet of privateering vessels, ships that were more interested in raiding Spanish treasure than in rescuing colonists. August 15th, 1590. 3 long years after he left, John White arrives back at Roanoke. It is late. A storm is gathering. As they approach the island, White sees a plume of smoke rising from the trees. His heart leaps. They row to shore, sounding trumpets and singing English songs, desperate for an answer. But there is no answer. The fire is just a wildfire, raging in the woods. The shore is empty. August 18th, 1590, Virginia Dare's 3rd birthday. At dawn, White and his men finally land at the site of the settlement, and they find nothing. It is gone. The houses, the cottages, the workshops, all of it. But it is not a scene of destruction. It is a scene of dismantling. The structures have been carefully taken down. There are no bodies. There are no graves. There is no sign of a battle, no blood, no smashed pottery. It is as if the colony was carefully, methodically packed up and moved. They find a defensive palisade the colonists must have built after he left, and there, carved into a post in clear Roman letters, is the word Croaton. Nearby, on another tree, they find the letters CRO. White searches frantically. He digs up chests he had buried, finding them looted. He circles the perimeter. He looks at the carved message, Croatoan, and he searches for the one thing that would mean disaster, the Maltese cross. It is not there. John White is not horrified. He is relieved. Croatoan was not a random word. It was the name of the island just south of Roanoke, the home of his ally Monteo. The carving, combined with the lack of a distress signal, is not a mystery to him. It is a message. It means, we are safe. We have moved to the island of our friends. White is desperate to go, but the weather, which had defined so much of Roanoke's fate, turns against him. A massive hurricane, a mighty tempest as he called it, blows in. The fleet is battered. Their main anchor cable snaps. The privateers, their ships damaged and their patience gone, refuse to risk their vessels further. They were never here for a rescue. They tell White they are leaving. He protests, he begs, but he is just one man. The fleet turns and sails back to England. John White is dragged away from the New World, screaming into the storm, knowing his family is just miles away. He would never see them again. He would never see his daughter. He would never know what became of his granddaughter, Virginia. John White died years later, broken, his life's work lost. So what happened? What does Croatoan really mean? For centuries, the story became a ghost tale, a local legend of a phantom colony. But the truth is likely far less supernatural and far more human. The 117 people of Roanoke were not swallowed by the fog. They were failed by their country.
Theory 1. Integration. This is the most logical and most widely accepted theory. John White was right. His colony, starving and realizing help was not coming, made a choice. They dismantled their settlement and willingly assimilated into the nearby Croatoan tribe. It was their only path to survival.
There is compelling evidence for this. For the next 100 years, other English explorers, including John Smith of the Jamestown colony, reported hearing rumors from native tribes of people to the south who wore European clothes, lived in two-story stone houses, and had blonde hair and gray eyes. Later, in the 1700s, settlers moving into North Carolina encountered a tribe on Hatteras Island, the same place as Croatoan, who had light eyes, spoke English, and, most remarkably, claimed their ancestors were white people. Many of them even bore surnames identical to those on the 1587 colony's roster. Today, the Lost Colony DNA Project is actively working to trace this genetic lineage, connecting modern descendants of the Croatoan, now known as the Lumbee, to the settlers. Theory 2, massacre. Not all theories are so hopeful. Another story, told to the Jamestown settlers by Chief Powhatan, holds a darker answer. He claimed that the colonists had not gone to Croatoan, but had moved inland and joined the Chesapeake tribe. Fearing this new alliance and seeing them as invaders, Powhatan claimed he himself had wiped them out.
This theory, however, doesn't explain the Croatoan carving. It doesn't explain the lack of a distress signal. And it doesn't explain why the houses were so carefully dismantled rather than burned in an attack. Theory 3. Splintered. The most recent archaeology suggests a combination. In the 2010s, archaeologists found 16th century English pottery, including a distinctive borderware from England, not only on Hatteras Island, Croatoan, but also at a site inland known as Site X. This suggests the colonists may not have stayed together. Perhaps some went to Croatoan, while another group, led by Eleanor Dare, traveled inland, hoping to be found. This inland group may be the ones Powhatan referred to. We are obsessed with Roanoke because it is a perfect mystery. It's an empty room, a question mark carved into the wilderness. But the colonists didn't vanish, they were abandoned. After 3 long years, they were faced with an impossible choice: cling to an English identity that had failed them and die, or let that identity go and live. The real story of Roanoke is probably not one of ghosts or of a great unsolved crime. It is a story of 117 people forced to adapt. They left their old world behind and stepped into a new one. The mystery isn't that they disappeared. The mystery is what happened after. Did Virginia Dare grow up as a Croatoan? Did she have children of her own? Did she ever look out at the ocean and wonder about the grandfather who never returned? The Lost Colony may not be lost at all. It may simply be changed, transformed. The final carving on that post was not a question, it was an answer. They weren't lost. They were at Croatoan.